He walked through the old doorway and into the darkened apartment. He soon shut the door against the evening sky and chilly city streets outside, and took off his scarf and overcoat to hang on the hooks built into the wall next to him. He called out his presence to the home and paused with a sigh at the lack of response. He knew he wasn't alone in the home, though, and who he was calling to would most likely be shut away in their own room. With the jingle of his keys, he hung them up on the key hook and made his way to the dark kitchen. He decided to make himself a quick dinner before going to bed early to head straight to work in the morning. He turned the stove on and tossed a couple of strips of chicken into a pan to cook, and added a couple of diced vegetables and spices to complete the dish later on. He plated it and began eating silently, not even bothering to turn the lights on as he could hardly care less. He would be going to sleep anyways, so he turned with his empty plate to the sink where he was going to place it for later cleaning, but paused in place at the sight of dirty used dishes completely taking over both portions of the basin parts. Exasperated, he combed his fingers through his messy hair. Deciding to just leave it due to his current lack of energy, he just dropped his plate onto the counter and just dragged his feet over the hardwood floors to go into his room. As soon as he reached the hallway, his tired eyes trained onto a door shut in the middle of the dark hallway, the gap at the bottom of the door showing a dim light escaping from the other side. He paused in his steps and listened, the sound of a girl's voice talking quietly to whatever with another voice in the background. He sighed when he heard specific words on the other side of the door, and trudged onward to his room. The blank and vacant wall seemed to enclose him darkly, as he closed his door and walked towards his bed. He flopped face first onto the mattress and rolled slightly on his back with a tired sigh, then began staring up at the ceiling. He thought back to what started his situation in the first place, why he was left the only legal guardian to watch over his sister. Both his parents decided out of nowhere they wanted to go on vacation, and packed their bags into their rickety sedan and went off to hit up multiple casinos to gamble their money away. And they never came back again. He had tried to keep in touch with his parents, but true to his brother's bitter words, the only contact they ever made with him was to get money back that they willingly lost themselves. It was hard enough to keep up with paying the bills back at the house, but since he brought his younger sister to his own apartment that he previously shared with his twin, he'd had to take up working 2 jobs to make ends meet. And since the move, his sister was very unhappy with the whole situation. He knew if she had the choice, she would have moved out and did her own thing. But she was 16 years old, and she didn't know anything at all. She wasn't working and was still going to school, and he truly worked hard to keep her taken care of and had her needs met. But damn it! Did she really have to make it all so difficult? He could understand her point of view, more or less, believing that your parents didn't love you enough to stay, and having your whole life uprooted and having to be plopped down in unfamiliar territory with no certainty of what the future would hold. And here she was, just spending most of her days, when she wasn't at school, locked up in her room, with her eyes glued to whatever screen was available to her. Whether it was to cope with her situation by distracting herself, or to avoid him specifically, he didn't know. But he began to hate her. His ears suddenly perked up at the sound of a door clicking and creaking open outside in the hallway. Immediately, he turned onto his side and faced his back towards his door. He stayed still and listened intently. He didn't hear anything for a couple of seconds, but then he heard small bare feet patter down the hall towards the kitchen, and pause again. Silence prolonged before he heard a sharp breath, shuffling, and then he winced at the loud clang of a pot sound from the kitchen, and a whole lot of noise continued on from there, and he shut his eyes. He wouldn't go out there to confront her. The last time he did that, they were in a full-blown argument, and he had to walk away before he did something he regretted. He hated feeling this way. He thought avoiding her would work, but the feelings and weight of the atmosphere falling upon him each time he walked through the damn door. Even though he used to live with his brother, he at least helped to pay his part of the rent, and was left home alone whenever his brother went out for long hours for his work. sometimes even for days, as soon as his whole parents' MIA happened. It seemed like his brother went straight off the grid. He stopped trying to get in contact with him, coming to terms with the fact that he followed their parents' example and went to find the end of the earth. That wasn't fair. Though he was never told details about what his brother did for work, he only assumed it was something to do with the government. That was a joke. However, he happened to indeed see his brother wearing a black suit with shades characteristically akin to the Men in Black. More than enough to deserve teasing on his part, but he always got the strangest reactions from him. He would laugh slightly at first to go along with the joke, but would immediately go serious whenever he turned his back. He remembered his mood also changed when he started getting strange calls from his work in the ungodly hours of the night, and he started becoming very distant until he finally left. He shook his head and tuned out the continual clanging and noises down the hall. That's enough thinking. He had work tomorrow.